afternoon, and thanks so much for joining us and our panel today. My name is Deb Wolf. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at a mobile and cloud security company called Lookout. You've probably heard a few things about Lookout today. And it is my distinct pleasure and honor to be the moderator of this session today. I could not be more excited to spend the next 55 minutes with this group of absolutely stellar cybersecurity badass rockstar women. I just love this group. They are friends, they are colleagues, former colleagues, and they are all well-respected marketing leaders who've touched cybersecurity in one way or another, and they are all at the top of their game. So I'm fortunate enough to have them on. We are all fortunate enough to learn from all of them today. And what I'll say is I think I have collectively known this group for some 76 years, which just goes to say, in your career, you will meet people who will be your people and will stay with you for many years to come. And so it's truly an honor to spend some time with them. So before our speakers introduce themselves, we're going to put up a quick poll. Bev, you can go ahead and launch that poll. We are interested to know where you are in your career. And so as you come in, feel free to answer that poll. All right, I'm going to let each of the speakers introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about how they got into cybersecurity. They all have some different journeys. I'll go ahead and start with Jen. Jen, do you want to introduce yourself?
Is that Jen meaning JJ?
Yes.
Just making sure. Most people call me JJ, so please feel free to call me JJ. Great to be here. I am the CMO of CrowdStrike. And I've been in cybersecurity and enterprise software more broadly for over 20 years. I've been a CMO for about a decade now, and I've worked in and led companies all the way from pre-IPO, hyper-growth startups, all the way through CrowdStrike now, which is a $3.5 billion ARR company. So I've kind of run the gamut and seen the gamut. Grew up through product marketing. And that's my formative years were spent in product marketing. So spent a lot of time working with engineering and product and storytelling and being able to take very technical information and create great stories out of them. I've wound up in cybersecurity through the acquisition of Veritas by Symantec, which now 20 years later, they're spun back out. But that's how I wound up in security. And then I found myself back into cybersecurity at a company called Tanium and kind of went from there and stayed in cyber. I love cyber. It's the only place that I want to be. And so I'm grateful to be here today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Heidi, you have taken a circuitous route to end up in cyber, both in your, mostly in your board and in your PE experience. So tell us a little bit about how you ended up here.
Absolutely. Thanks, Deb. I've been in enterprise software and been what I would call a serial CMO for, I like to say, about 1,000 years. And just a couple years ago, I decided to hang up my operational CMO hat and joined PE firm Hellman and Friedman, where I worked directly with Hellman and Friedman's portfolio companies as an advisor to their CMOs and their executive teams, companies in growth phases as well as companies at scale. So that's what I do today. I also sit on boards, and that's actually how I ended up being introduced to cyber. I had been in enterprise software for a very long time, and specifically in SaaS, and I joined the board of a public company at the time called Sailpoint in the cybersecurity business. And one of my personal rules about joining a board is I want to be able to add value, but I also want to learn something. And so joining Sailpoint was an opportunity for me as a board member to jump into cyber and learn a ton. And so that was really my circuitous route into cybersecurity. And now I actually am an advisor to a number of security businesses within the H&F portfolio as well. So I'm thrilled to be here and excited for the dialogue.
Me too, because you have such a unique perspective on cyber, just obviously in the companies that you focused on with cyber, but just at the board level in general. As we know, security has become such a board level discussion. So I'm totally looking forward to your perspective as well. All right, Leslie, you're up.
Well, hi, everybody. I'm Leslie Alore. I'm the SVP of Lifecycle Marketing at Ivanti. Ivanti is a IT software company, and we provide a platform that's designed to bring together the technology needs of CIOs and CISOs. And I ended up in cyber by way of data center, then through information security. Very shortly after I joined Ivanti, they made a big step into cyber with some acquisitions. So it's not been a direct journey and a path. And in fact, I started my career, I went to engineering school and then landed in marketing operations. So I definitely was more on the geekier side of things. I'm a numbers girl, and it served me very, very well from a marketing perspective. But man, cyber is such an interesting space. A lot of fun challenges to tackle, and I also have been just so amazed by the talent that the cyberspace has attracted. And so whether you're new in your career and exploring this space, or you've been doing it for a while, I think people very quickly find a fast passion here, like JJ.
For sure. All right, and Shanta.
Thanks, Deb. So I'm Shanta Kohli. I am the SVP of Marketing, focusing on brand demand and content at Sysdig. And I actually started my career also in software marketing. Software, then kind of moved into security. Probably 2012 is around the time that I worked for Blue Coat, which security company that eventually got bought by Symantec. But went to school, actually studied marketing, which my parents always loved to say, oh, you actually ended up staying in marketing all these years, had a passion right through college, and really wanted to be on the tech side. And so like JJ, it's funny because I think what I got hooked in security was the mission that we were driving. And I think that's something, if I think about some of the companies, Blue Coat, Palo Alto Networks, now I'm at Sysdig, protecting that digital way of life always stood next to me. Like, hey, that's a mission I could get behind. Whether it's our financials, hospital records, whatever it was, I really connected well to that mission. And so I also find it's challenging. I mean, there are like 2,000 plus security companies. And so you're learning something every day. You're like telling stories, you're trying to understand the market. And so it's evolving. And so that's exciting. And then you can build these relationships. Deb mentioned it, but being able to almost create a community within security marketing with the industry. I've got the benefit that I've worked with Deb and JJ before at previous companies. So that's really exciting and nice to be here today, Deb. Thanks.
Thanks, you guys. That's great. All right, let's dig right in. So we titled this panel, Cracking the Code, Women Leading Security Marketing in a Male-Dominated Field. So, anything's on the table here, but I'd like to start with a very controversial topic right off the bat and talk a little bit about what challenges you may have encountered as women in this male-dominated field and how you overcame them. And so maybe we'll start with JJ, and because you've been in it a long time, you're obviously leading marketing at a very, very well-known company. And it is a male-dominated industry. I know you're not backing down from that, but tell us what challenges you've seen and sort of how you've overcome them.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing I would say is don't be afraid to use your voice. And I think it's, easier said than done, but it can be intimidating, right? Especially when you're maybe earlier in your career, starting out, especially that I grew up in technical. I'm not an engineer, but I was in a product marketing team where I was typically in meetings with engineers. And so you kind of put those together as I'm not as technical as the people in the room. And I'm probably one of the only women, if not the only woman in the room together. That can be extremely intimidating. And the only thing that I can say is please stay confident in the fact that we all probably know more than we give ourselves credit for. I know that I have, it's been a thing for me as I've developed in my career to remember that we have a perspective, we have a unique perspective. So being the, one of the only women or the woman in the room, we think about things sometimes differently, and we come to different conclusions for different reasons. And our thought process sometimes is a little bit different, and you need all of that. And so there's no, we all need to remember that we have something to contribute to the conversation, and give yourself credit that you know more. I guarantee that you know more than you think you do on any given topic, and don't be afraid to use your voice. Again, it's easier said than done, but we just all have to get past any fear that we have of speaking up, because it's easy to have the male voices in the room dominate the conversation. That's the first thing. The second thing I always say is, remember that you have a seat at the table, and I say that figuratively as well as literally. So as we are, going back, a lot of us are going back to offices again, right? I think this is again a relevant conversation, but I always look at when you're in a conference room and you're at a table, sometimes there's not as many chairs around the table as there are people in the room. And sometimes people bring in chairs and they line them up around the perimeter of the room. And I always watch this because a lot of times the women will default to not sitting at the table and sitting at the chairs that are in the perimeter of the room. And if I ever see that, I will literally open up a seat for someone next to me to have them come and sit at the table. And I think, if it's that situation or example, if there's another situation that you can literally or figuratively help someone have their seat at the table, I think it's on all of us as women to advocate and just keep that in mind and be situationally aware for other women as well.
I love that. Heidi, I imagine there's quite a few boardrooms that are male dominated as well. How do you find those rooms, and how do you think about your place at the table in some of those rooms?
It's a funny, like I can remember the first time I sat on my first executive team meeting at my first CMO role a very long time ago at a company called Hyperion, and I looked around the room and it hadn't really occurred to me that I was going to be the only woman in the room. Like I hadn't really thought it through. And it felt funny. And all the things that JJ just talked about as far as that confidence and being able to draw from that confidence and being able to use your own leadership styles. So as women, we don't have to emulate a male leadership style. And sometimes our ability to have a voice might look different than our male counterparts. And I remember thinking, how do I stand out in this group? And how can I work to not feel so different and feel like I belong, having that seat at the table like JJ talked about. And so there are a couple of things that I think are important, building on what JJ suggested, certainly using your voice. That's really, really important. And I think as women, we do tend to sit back sometimes, and sitting up, using your voice at the table is really important. But I also believe that you need to look around the room for your allies. There are people in that room, there are men at the table that want you to be successful. Find them. Build a relationship with them. And I'll tell you, I was so lucky at Hyperion because not only was it a company that had a really strong, positive company culture, but the CEO was investing in women in leadership positions. And shortly after I joined, it was actually about 6 months after I joined, our CFO retired. And we brought in a female CFO. And it was the coolest opportunity to not only be able to help someone else at that table, but to also feel like I have something in common. And the reason why that happened is because the CEO was an ally. And he also allowed me and the new CFO to create an organization within Hyperion for women in leadership roles and to help mentor and develop a program and invest in it. And so I say find your allies in the room. I mean, physically in the room, at the table, if you will, but also within the organization, because those are folks that can really help you. And they are men a lot of times. And they want you to be successful. So definitely use your voice, but also find your allies. And then I'll leave with one, it's sort of a trick actually, that I used personally. I was the CMO at Polycom, very male dominated, telecommunications industry, very male dominated organization. And I found that one of the tricks that I used personally at every board meeting, not at every executive team meeting, but probably at a lot of them, I wore pink. Like I wore pink. I know that sounds silly and kind of a little bit crazy, but it actually gave me power to take that seat at the table. And I realized in every photograph, like every executive team photo, like I seriously am wearing pink, which is kind of odd, but it did give me that confidence. And you just have to figure out what is that thing that gives you the confidence to take that place at the table that you rightfully own and to use your voice. So use your voice, find your allies, and find that.
Pink. And wear pink.
Wear pink.
Power pink.
Exactly.
I think it's power pink, right?
Yeah.
I love it. Let's continue this ally discussion because I just love it. And Leslie and Shanta, I'd love to bring both of you in on this. How have you guys either advocated for other women, or what are things that you've seen other men even doing to advocate for women within cyber?
Well, I
didn't call on you, so either one of you.
I'll jump in. I've as recently as this week, because I participate quite a bit in mentor programs. So I have kind of informal people that I mentor. I certainly maintain a network of mentors myself, and we also, Ivanti has a formal mentoring program as well, and it's all genders, but I happen to have 2 female mentees right now, and what I have told them is find sponsors. It's good advice in any career, but find people who will sponsor you and can be a voice for you when you are not in the room, but also who is willing to give you the time and the honesty to give you feedback and help you see and understand how you show up. And I was lucky enough to have that earlier in my career. I found myself early in my career, I actually was completely blind to my minority status as a female, believe it or not. I think I had spent my entire life kind of, I was in Science Olympiad and I did a lot of things there was a lot of guys. And I just kind of became my normal, and I didn't realize that I had to be more conscious of how I showed up when I was in a male-dominated space, in a male-dominated meeting, because oftentimes I showed up as, you hear these things, aggressive, bossy, and it took somebody, a man, being brave enough to be like, hey, let me tell you how you show up, and I had to really process that. And my first reaction was, F you, but I took that feedback as a gift, and I learned how to adjust. And that maybe is not fair, but it's important if you want to be successful and have people hear you and not just react to how they feel about you and how you might communicate.
Yeah. Shanta?
Yeah. So I would say, okay, so maybe two ideas here, but I think creating that tribe. So I think about Leslie saying within the organization, and that's great. And I had a good laugh because I remember asking someone about something similar when you were saying, like, how am I being perceived? But I think also this tribe. So I feel, very lucky in my career that I've been able to take a few, marketing professionals, with me on every single role that I end up taking on. And this, I'm just going to call it a marketing tribe for me, where I feel very comfortable kind of sharing maybe some of the experiences like JJ mentioned, or, definitely being the only woman in a sales QBR and hearing Heidi say this. And I once had a leader tell me not to wear a dress to the QBR and actually wear a pants, and then you'd fit in. And I thought to myself, well, I'm going to wear the dress because I like dresses. So I'm going to wear it. And so really, that opportunity to stand out. And so I think the tribe has been so helpful to me, because sometimes we second guess and think, oh, well, maybe I should listen to her because she's telling me to wear the pants. But no, the group, helped me with those experiences, ideas, and, even such things as like the first time I became a VP, negotiating that exec comp package. Who do I go to, right? And, I could go to this group of women and say, hey, ladies, does this seem like the right comp package for me? And so that was really helpful, I would say, being able to have that group that you feel safe and that can advocate for you and it's going to lead you in the right direction. So that's helpful to me.
That's great. Let's talk a little bit about the advice you might give the people who are listening today. And, we are all marketers, obviously, in cyber, and we take a lot of the folks I think are in engineering and technical roles. JJ, you mentioned having worked a ton with those people, obviously, as a product marketer. I think that's pretty typical. But what sort of advice would you give to folks who want to either pursue a career in cyber marketing or are coming maybe from an engineering role, how they can learn more about cybersecurity marketing and our role in the business and why it's important? I'll start with you, JJ.
All right, great. So I think that the best thing to do is network and ask for informational interviews. Most people will be happy to give time to educate you on what it is they do and how their role fits in. I think one of the things about marketing that maybe not everyone realizes is marketing is an umbrella function that has probably a dozen or more different functions within it. And so the role of the marketing leader is to make sure that all of the different functions are working in unison and creating a multiplier. But within those, you have people who are PR and communications professionals. You have people who are product marketing, who might be technical marketing. You have people who run demand generation, and it runs the gamut, right? Those are just three of the examples. But marketing is a very broad collection of a lot of different functions. So I think the first thing is to understand and just do some exploratory interviews with even in areas where you might not naturally gravitate towards, because you might learn something and it might actually be an area that you didn't even know that you had interest in. That would be the first thing. And again, I think most people would be more than happy to take the time. And if you're working in a company today in a technical role, maybe talk to the technical counterpart that you have that's in marketing, whether that's technical marketing or product marketing. Those are probably the roles that you probably interface with the most, and use that as kind of the launching point to understand what they do. Product marketing is also a great entry point into marketing because it does touch, it's a hub function is what I like to call it. So it touches a lot of different pieces of marketing. It's working with product and engineering, it's working with marketing and sales, it's working with customers. So you kind of get a very good 360-degree view of what marketing's role is. But I think talking to people and seeing how they work is probably the best example. And going to key industry events like RSA. We have RSA coming up in a couple of weeks in San Francisco, Black Hat as well. Going to these events, and you can see not only the breadth of, Shanta said, the 2,000 plus companies that are out there, but there are a lot of people from all different functions, including marketing, that are typically at those events. So it's a really good way to see how different companies are approaching their marketing and their messaging and their positioning. So there's plenty of ways to get educated.
Yeah, for sure. Shanta, do you have some thoughts on that?
Yeah, so just adding into what JJ said, yeah, marketing is broad, definitely. I mean, I think the other thing that I would say, if you've already got that technical aptitude, so if you by chance are working in a cybersecurity company, maybe you're working in like as a security engineer or in the NOC or something, in there. I think here's the nice thing: you already have the technical aptitude. So, the thing is, security is pretty technical. Like I said, it's one of the, I think, hardest marketing place to be, I would say also, right, for that reason. But you do understand the customer language. You do understand the pain points. You are maybe the persona that we're all marketing to, right? And so you have the credibility to be a trusted advisor. And to JJ's point, go to these big, RSA's coming up, sit with your sales team, sit with your customer success team, see how you can learn more about what these personas are going through, and see if that's a career that you may be interested in on the marketing side. But it's pretty easy.
Vice versa too, right? I do the same in my role on a pretty regular basis, where I go and spend time with our customer success folks because I want to be close to the customer. I want to hear the pain points that are coming from those customers, and just that almost rotational aspect. I think a lot about career journeying versus straight lining your career, and how many opportunities we have, especially in cyber, to really understand a little bit more technical, a little bit more customer pains, maybe a little bit more on the sales side. I manage the sales development team at Lookout, and those folks always say they want to go straight up into sales. And I say, go be an SE or go be a customer success person, because you'll learn so much more about what those challenges are that the customer is really trying to take on. And so I think there's just so much opportunity. Anyone else want to add in on this topic?
I'll jump in on.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to piggyback quickly on what you said about doesn't need to be linear. I'm a very goal-oriented individual, and I had this plan for myself of what I would do and the straight line I would take to get there. But I had some opportunities arise in my career to take some lateral steps and do something completely different. So even though I started my career in marketing and I'm currently in marketing, I actually spent many years outside of marketing. I went and did corporate strategy and corporate development, and then I did disruptive product innovation work. And you learn so much more, and you have such a broader view on things that can really enrich any career path, and it helps you figure out where you want to go. I came back to marketing. I almost didn't, but I think I'm a better marketer for it.
Yeah, Heidi.
I was just going to add the fact that marketing today requires so much more technical aptitude than it did in the past. And so for folks that have a technology, especially a data background, you're needed on marketing teams more than ever today. And so don't just limit yourself to thinking about technical roles, whether it be in a product organization and engineering organization. Think about marketing, because the importance of data in marketing today is we're not going to be successful. Like the days of arts and crafts marketing, and I don't say that to be dismissive of it, because there's a component of marketing that is important, that is more on the creative side. But the importance of data and technical experience today is far outweighs any other experience, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's talk a little bit more about marketing in cyber, because many of you mentioned at the beginning of in your introductions at the beginning of our talk that you're storytellers. I think of myself as a storyteller as well. So these are very technical products, but we have to make them, I won't say dumbed down, because that is not it, but we have to make them consumable for our customers, right? And we have to answer their pain points. And I find oftentimes, especially in cyber, there are so many acronym soup crazy, right? So how do you all think about the aspect of storytelling your products? And maybe Leslie, we'll start with you. And then I know I want to go to JJ on this, because I think of her as a serial category designer, and that category design is really at the key of storytelling. But Leslie, let's start with some of your most recent experience, because I know you've had a unique situation there.
Yeah, well, obviously, just the best thing to do is confuse people with all the acronyms, and then they'll believe that you have all the credibility in the world. Now, we actually tried to do something a little bit. We probably swung the pendulum a little too far, but we tried to put in our brand guidelines that we will not use acronyms ever, and that didn't stick. But we do try to spell it out. But here's the thing about the cyberspace. There are thousands of cyber vendors, and they all do different things and have different value and position their value differently. But a lot of them also do the same things and have the same value, and at the end of the day, could be seen as the same. And so it's really important to take the time to understand your customer and what and who that niche is, and how you can deliver business value. It's at the end of the day, it's not, hey, here's the feature function blinky light product I have for you. It's I understand your business is trying to achieve XYZ, and we have a solution that can help you do that. And you got to be able to break through the noise. The other thing you have to be able to do is be credible in how you show up and speak to the market. And sometimes that means being vulnerable or doing things differently. Deb, I think what you're alluding to is the fact that we, like many software vendors, because software is what it is, had some CVEs that we needed to communicate. And unfortunately, sometimes what happens is you have vulnerabilities that get exploited. That's very bad as well. And we made a decision that was a bit unique and to be very transparent about what was going on and communicate that information as soon as we could, even before we had a patch available, in fact, which is not typical for those who don't know that. And in the marketing world, this is a hard position to be in, to say, how do I communicate to people to convey seriousness, to convey authenticity, and the fact that we're doing everything we can, and you have to be updating people regularly. And what was amazing about the experience that we had with this was our customers really appreciated it, and so did our business. In fact, our leadership team looked to marketing, looked to the communications team to give advice about what they should do and how we should navigate and move through this. And I think a few years ago that probably wouldn't have been the case if marketing had a seat at the table in that conversation and not just, being dictated as to what to do and say. Then they probably wouldn't have had the loudest voice. And in this case, we had the opportunity to really be a leader in terms of how we were going to handle this as an organization. So internal credibility and external credibility, and breaking through the noise isn't easy.
Yeah, for sure. And that's it's such a hard time in a company's evolution when you go through an experience like that. But you guys handled it very, very well. So hats off on that. JJ, I think you're the only CMO on this call, leader on this call, who has had a Super Bowl commercial. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you take cyber and go to Super Bowl Sunday, because everybody loves that. But you have such an amazing experience in category design, which I'll let you actually give a little bit of a definition around what category design is, but maybe just the storytelling you guys do, and especially for CrowdStrike, who has so many products. Oh my gosh, such a large portfolio.
Yeah. So thank you. There's a lot of goodness in here. I could probably talk for hours on it, but I'll keep it to a couple minutes. So the first thing I'd say is for any company in cyber, any marketing team, we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to make it easier for the people who are buying our solutions to buy it and not get confused. And I really do view that as a responsibility, because we've talked about it. Leslie just talked about it. There's a lot of noise. And when I say noise in this industry, I mean, every market is crowded, and therefore everyone sounds the same. I think it's an extreme example in cyber, because there are so many companies, coupled with the fact of, if you keep the message too high level, everybody sounds the same, because effectively we're all trying to do the same thing, which is, it's very simple form, stopping bad things from happening, right? And if you go too deep, and this is where marketing really comes in, and I love to say, like, storytelling cannot be a lost art, because especially in technical areas, I agree with Shanta completely. Security is one of the more technical sectors of software in general. It's easy to want to just show all your features. We all love our technology is super cool. Like, look at everything that it can do. Look at all its features and benefits. But at the end of the day, that just adds to the issue, right? Everyone sounds the same because it's too high level, or everyone's talking about all their bells and whistles, and it's not getting to the heart of what is the problem that you're solving. So when we think about category design really is carving out a new container or a new space, right, to actually articulate a new way of working and living. But it's solving a problem. It's solving a problem in a new way. It's solving maybe a problem in a different way, or it's solving a problem people didn't know they had, right? And so we think about category creation, just positioning in general. It all comes back to your point of view and your story. And I use point of view intentionally, because it's not about just messaging, it's about positioning. And what do I mean by that? It all starts with framing your problem. What problem are you solving? But if you frame it the right way, then your solution is the only solution to that problem, right? And so think really closely about what the problem is that you're framing, because if you frame it the right way, you're going to lead it to, well, you're the best and only solution. And it's not about being incrementally better. It's about being quantumly better, but more importantly, it's about being different. And so that's the first thing I'd say is storytelling, shouldn't be a lost art. And I think that's the most critical skill actually that every marketer needs to have, besides being data driven, is being good storytellers. Being good storytellers with data is even an art form in itself, right? The next thing I'd say is keep it simple and create an emotional response. So CrowdStrike has 3 very simple words that encapsulates what we do. We stop breaches. That was created before I got here. And actually the company started to like drift away from it a bit. And I pulled it right back. I said, no, it's our version of Just Do It from Nike, right? And so it's such a simple way. And it really isn't just a tagline for us. It's our mission. It's a mission. It actually drives everything we do, not just the story we tell, but it also allows us to tell these very impactful emotional stories. And so that kind of leads to the Super Bowl commercial of, one of the things that I think we've done really well as a company is we've told stories in a very simple, relatable way that everyone can appreciate and understand. And, our Super Bowl storytelling is really, at the end of the day, it's a story of good versus evil. And it's putting it out to the masses, to the mainstream, people who might not be technologists, who might not really know much, anything about cybersecurity beyond, my credit card got hacked. And we're bringing something extraordinarily technical to everyone in a way that they can understand. And look, we have a heroine. We have an AI heroine. Some people might not really know what AI is, but for those who do, right, we have adversaries that we've actually created personas around. And so we take these very technical things and we create these ways to articulate our story. And so, that's just one example of what we've done. And, I think there's a lot of very talented, great marketers out there. And so I'm a big advocate of, like, do not forget about the lost art of storytelling. It's really important.
JJ, I got to tell you, when that Super Bowl commercial came out, I immediately texted my team and I was like, our phones and emails are about to blow up from every single salesperson going, "Where's our Super Bowl commercial?" But
I'm sorry.
No, it's so true. And what I love that you frame it as a responsibility. And I agree with that responsibility. And what I think you and Leslie, you put the why around it, right? We have people in our organizations, many of the women that are on this call today, in very technical jobs, building great product, right? It is our job to communicate that product, the benefits of that product, the superiority in some cases, the research behind what we do, all of those things that help the market understand, what has gone into it, the investment that our companies have put in this. And when it's done right, it rallies the whole company, right? It is a rally call for the whole company. And so that's what I think about when we do these things as well, is I have the honor of bringing this to market, right? I didn't build it. I didn't roadmap it. I didn't engineer it, but we get to be the people who, serve it out to market. And that's such an honor, I think, to represent so much technical skill behind what we're doing. But it is hard to do because it is very technical and you have to get it to a place where the customer can actually understand it and appreciate it. So, and that is sometimes the lost art, to your point about the lost art of storytelling. So, well, let's talk a little bit about security research, because so much is done I think, and probably in all of our companies, but how do you all think about staying one step ahead of the curve to ensure that your marketing reflects the latest trends and challenges? So as new products are coming out, or as your research teams are bringing things to market, how do you think about taking those things out and helping your customers understand them? And JJ, feel free to continue your thought here, because I know that's really important to CrowdStrike as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's, we have a very active and very highly respected threat intelligence organization, right? And so I go back to our responsibility when there's something that happens, when there's a breach, when there's new adversary tactics and behaviors that we're seeing, it's our responsibility to get that out to the market and to our customers as quickly as possible. And marketing obviously plays a key role there because we have the megaphone. But I always say it's not just about disseminating the information, it goes back to how do we help them solve a problem? So it's not just here's the information, but it's here's the information, here's how to find it, here's how you know if it's affecting you, and here's how to fix it and stop it, most importantly. And using it as a way to educate people, right? It goes back to, it's not about us telling the world about how great we are. It's about us helping people solve their problems and having outcomes.
100%. Yeah. Shanta?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think education is also like a huge part of it. Like JJ was saying, it's like, hey, we are at the point where we've got this information. And so how do we get that information out? But like, I'd even say Sysdig, for example, has an open source product around threat detection and response, like Falco, being able to, for anybody to have access, download it, be able to, take a look at that threat, see how they can maybe have prevented it with Falco or, whatever. Threat research teams, I know we all leverage them. So grateful. They, provide that insights when there are CVEs going on. Again, adding that value, because I think at the end of the day, these are people. It's all about relationships that you're creating with them. And so especially with your customers, we all kind of have the same mission. So we're leveraging that information to educate this market and educate our customers too.
That's awesome. So I can't believe I have to ask this question, and this will help maybe wrap us up and take us home here. But I'm going to ask you about your predictions for the future of women in cyber roles and leadership roles. I don't ask about your predictions for the men in cyber roles, but I'm going to put it out there. Maybe Leslie, I'll start with you, but just your hopes and thoughts for, how maybe more women joining cyber, how we move forward, how in all of these roles, not just in marketing, but in cyber in general.
So there are like 3.4 million open jobs in cybersecurity right now in the world, and only about 24% of the people occupying cyber roles are women. It's actually even worse if you look at other minority groups, like African Americans are only represented as 8% of the population. And here's the thing. Cybersecurity is about staying ahead of the problems that are being created by threat actors. It's effectively a problem-solving function and discipline, and there's lots of evidence that shows that problems are solved faster and better with more diverse inputs and thinking. So my hope for women, but also for cybersecurity and for all of us having our cyber and space secured, is that we get better at having more diverse representation in this space. Do I predict it will happen? Yes, out of necessity. Yes, because I think Gen Z is more diverse. Yes, because I think we have access to more diverse talent through a remote workforce. I think all of those things will help us get there, but it can't happen accidentally. It has to happen through intention as well.
Heidi, how about you?
Yeah, so my hope is that as we think about diversity in the workforce, but we also think about diversity in the boardroom. And that's true for cybersecurity and beyond. And so my hope is that in cyber, as well as in technology from a broader perspective, that more women and more diverse candidates are considered for board roles. I'll tell you that I am a huge proponent of not only gender diversity, obviously, and cultural and ethnic diversity, but also diversity of experience around the boardroom table. And that to me is a really big driver to increasing diversity across the board. So as a former CMO, sitting on public and private company boards, that's hard because I am not the first, I don't look like the first person that they look to consider for a board role. It's usually a former CEO or former CFO. But I'll tell you that the boards that I participate on, those that have diversity across the board, including diversity of experience, are the boards that are highest functioning and the most successful companies. And so that's my hope, is to continue to move forward women on boards, both in cyber and beyond.
That is terrific. And I want to give you a little clap on that one for sure. Shanta, how about you?
Yeah, so I would say I feel like HR teams, companies, definitely I'm seeing more women in cyber than I've seen when if I think about 2012 and what it looks like now. And so I think we've made it more desirable for women. We have to be we really have to think about roles and you talked about the BDR role or the SDR role. I had a specific challenge of trying to hire more women into those roles, right? And so you have to be deliberate about it and say, hey, we need to do something here. For me, I would say something that's interesting. I'm a mom. I have 2 kids, one that's in college, one's in high school. I would say something that's interesting is 19% of women leave, and this is not just cyber, this is in general, leave their careers after they have kids. And I think to me, that is something I would like to see change. And because, it could have happened to me as well. Could have, not moved on in my career, but, I did. And so, I'd love to see us open up things like part-time roles, flex work days, job sharing more, because we definitely want to retain these folks. And I think a lot of times it feels like it's one or the other. And so I'd love to see some of these programs get implemented across the board.
That's terrific. And JJ?
I just want to echo everything that Heidi, Shanta, and Leslie just said. My hope is that I think all of us here have been in the situation. I think Heidi mentioned it earlier about being the only woman in the room, the only woman on the executive team, the only woman on the board, right? Which is still, very much the norm. And my hope is that for the next generation of leaders coming up, they never have that experience, that it's not just 1 or 2 women in the room, it's equal. And I think it goes straight back to what Shanta was just saying, is we need to make sure that we keep women in the workforce. We give them opportunities, but we don't give them incentives to leave, or disincentives, right? To say you don't have to make a choice. You can have it. You can have both. So that's my hope.
That's right. Well, I can't thank you all enough. You have been terrific panelists. I hope everyone has enjoyed our conversation this afternoon. I want to thank you again for joining us. I'll give you a little bit of time back, maybe about 5 minutes, so you all can have a quick bio break or grab something to drink before your next session. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you, Deb.
Thank you.
Thank you.